What is up, Prepper Talk Radio Nation? We are live. This is our weekly live broadcast. If you're not already in the lives, join us every Wednesday. We are live every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Best place to connect with us is either in our group on Facebook, Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance, or our favorite over on YouTube. Either way, you can interact live with us as we go through our topic of the night. And tonight we're going to talk about something that you are probably really crappy at. And I mean like really crappy. I cannot tell you how many people don't know how to get places, don't know how to navigate, and are just completely lost half the time. And it's funny because if you don't have your phone.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, I'm really good at it as long as I have my GPS.
No, just use my GPS. It tells me where to go. And so many people just are just so just clueless on how to find their way. If you are Gen X or older, you've used paper maps, but how often?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the older than Gen X, you've got tons of experience, but it's like the millennials, most of them have no clue. If they don't have their phone, they're not finding anything. I don't even know what you call the newest ones, but they're just lost. Oh, and you talking about asking, is Shane lost? Shane is not lost. He knows exactly where he is. He had a family emergency come up he had to take care of. Thank you for asking about him. We love that dude. You guys, if you got a minute, say a little prayer for his daughter. She appears to have had a concussion, some kind of accident. We don't know exactly what's going on, but please remember them in your thoughts and prayers. Speaking of taking care of your loved ones, the most important thing you can do in your preparedness is having a plan. Having a plan for when things go sideways. So this went sideways for Shane tonight, so he's not here. But what is your plan if things go sideways on any given day? Do you have a get-home bag? Do you have go bags? Is something like what some people like to call them, or bug-out bags, emergency kits. We call them just kits most of the time. Mm-hmm. You have a 96-hour kit. If not, start building one. If you have no clue how to start building one, go to preppertalkradio.com, click on our resources tab, and we've got downloads where you can actually go through the checklist and get the right things for your kit. And it's always cheaper to buy the right stuff and build your own kit. You'll know it better than to just go buy a kit, pre-made kit somewhere. They'll usually sell you the most garbage pieces of garbage that you can get, and it's stuff that you don't know how to use most of the time because you haven't done any research or you haven't played around with it. Always take everything out of the boxes, learn how to use it, and then put it in the bag. And then here's the rule of thumb. Every 6 months, I like to do spring and fall, kind of April, October, go through, revitalize that bag. Make sure the food that you have in there, make sure the water that you have in there, just revitalize it, and then change out the clothing based on the seasons. Some people live in places where the seasons change faster and things could be different. So you might have to go through it 4 times a year. It's a great little family activity.
Another example of that is I was, back in California, I had an opportunity to work with a congregation that I was the emergency preparedness specialist for that congregation. And I told them, hey, let me come to your house and review what you're doing with your bags and with your emergency kits and all that. And one of the houses that I went to, bless their heart, they had their kids pack on the top shelf of the closet. And I was like, hey, your kid will never be able to reach that. So that's some things to think about when you're, not only that, but when they made those kits, the kids were babies and they're now like, 8, 9, 10 years old, and they had a change of clothes in there. And I was like, you need to update the change of clothes for sure. So just some things to think about when you're trying to do your preparedness, and where are your kits? Are they close? Can they grab them? And can you make sure that you're ready to go? Because one of the topics we're going to be discussing in this live is escape and evasion, along with navigation. So, one of the things that I said with my kids, like, what if there's a burglar and we need to avoid being detected from somebody coming in the house, breaking in the house? And so we tried to make sure that all the kids knew where their stuff was so they could grab it quickly and get to the safe spot. And we had a plan, and we practiced it a couple of times, depending on where the invader comes in, the front door, the back door, a window. So we practiced a lot of those things. And so having your stuff available, ready to grab and go, is critical. You don't want to be caught And there's going to be situations probably where you're not going to be able to get to your stuff. So just be ready for that too. Like maybe have a contingency plan that if you had a burglar come in and you needed to escape your home, and you couldn't grab your bag, where do you have stuff in the car? Do you have something outside of your home that you can quickly grab in the shed or something that you can get even if you have to leave? So
I think that is the most important thing, the redundancy of places, right?
Mhm.
You have some basic kits inside, you have some basic kits outside, somewhere hidden, somewhere accessible, right? But don't like here's the funniest thing. I've done that same consult with people, and you go in their front door, and there's a door behind the door that's the closet. And in that closet is all their gear.
Mhm.
That's also their coat closet. But you've got to close the front door to get that door open to get to it. I don't know why builders did this. It was popular in Colorado. I don't know if it's popular here in Utah or anywhere else. If that's popular where you live, I'm sorry, builders are stupid. But like, if you put your emergency stuff there and someone's trying to get through your front door and you can't get to that door to move that door to get your stuff out, like it's gone. You've got to
Yeah.
depart without it, right?
Yep.
One of our guests that we've had on a number of times, Stan Pruitt, he has 2 separate sets of go bags and one's by an escape entrance and one's by a nondescript exit. And so depending on where the problem is, they have 2 different ways they can get out that are non-primary and grab stuff and go.
Mhm.
And I'm like, wow, that right there, that tip right there changed how I thought about where I'm putting my stuff. Because a lot of people will put their stuff in their cold storage because it's a
Yeah.
concrete room. Like in Colorado, in the mountain areas, a lot of people have a cold storage. It's basically a concreted version of a root cellar, but it's a bunker. It's a tiny little bunker. You put your stuff in there. If you can't get to that door is not accessible. You're not getting your stuff out.
Mhm.
So don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Yep. I have all of my kids have their grab and go bags in the closet of their bedroom. That's probably the probability that you're going to need to grab and go is going to come from you're in your room, chilling on your bed or whatever. Maybe most of the time it's going to be, even at nighttime, if you have a burglar or something like that. So I felt like if I was going to roll the dice, the highest likelihood of that being the fastest, easiest, most efficient location was going to be high on the list. So that's where I keep our kids, is all their go bags are in their bedrooms. So they can just grab it and jump out the window. They can grab it and go head to one of the, back door, front door, whatever it is. They have the
And
ability to do that.
and you've got enough redundancy in those kits that if one kid can't grab their kit, you
Oh
can
yeah.
pull pieces together from other people's kits to help prolong the situation.
Yeah. As long as
That
if we get half of us with the kit, there's 5 of us in the house right now. So if we get 3 kits, we'll be golden for all 5
Yeah,
of us.
you're doing pretty well. And so when we start talking about these things tonight, when we get into start the escape and evade types of things, and we start talking about, you know, understanding trails, there's 2 types of navigation we want to talk about. First one we want to talk about is really like escape and evade, avoiding tails, getting away from a troubled area, problem places.
Mhm.
Say you're on your way home and you're maybe a mile, 2 miles, 3 miles from home, 10 miles from home, and they're stopping everybody and they're not letting anybody get home. And maybe they're looking for you. Are you going to go all the way to that gate and wait? Are you going to sit in your car and wait for them to get to you and find out you're exactly who they're looking for and now get carted off to some camp or whatever? Or
Mhm.
are you going to get out of the car and into the woods or into a populace where they can't find you? And if so, how? So
Yeah.
we're going to talk about some of these things. I've talked to a couple of different um, police officers about this topic to get some information on how they avoid detection in undercover work, um, and also some of the things that they wear to help avoid tails. Um,
Nice.
and and the coolest one that is simply a reversible jacket.
Hmm.
Most of the time when someone's tailing you, they're watching your upper body.
Yeah.
And the simplicity of a reversible jacket where it's a different color on one side than the other throws them off, gives you a little time to get away. Hey, Kimberly, welcome back. Hey, Utah Mike, thanks for being part of the show today. But it was that simple of a thing. I'm like, you're kidding. They're like, no, it's that
Well,
simple.
how many
You
times have you
watch,
watched a TV show and they're getting followed by somebody and they they swap coats with somebody, or they walk into a department store and grab a coat, steal a coat basically off of the
right?
rack, put it on, and then they're, so to speak, they're lost. And even putting a hat on, having a hat versus no hat. Those are
Hat,
some things.
sunglasses, something to change your look, right?
Hmm.
But then to blend in with the people around you. Like for example, you don't want to be wearing like if you're out and about and there's chances of being easily identifiable, like don't wear things that you wear all the time that people recognize that's you. If you've got to be out and you like Stan Pruitt used him already before. Urban Survivors. If you go to his YouTube channel, Urban Survivors, he has a video on this. He's like, I in an SHTF scenario become a rogue bum, a rogue homeless guy with a trench coat, and I rub poo on the coat if I need to, but I make myself ugly, messy, smelly, unapproachable. I'm the last person you're going to look at as a person of interest.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to be the person you want to stay away from.
Yeah.
And I can carry all kinds of weaponry, guns, gear, tools. He's like, I can even fit a backpack underneath my trench coat and you can't even tell it's there.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's what we're looking at.
Hmm.
But going back to the police officers that I talked to, one of them talked about never going against the traffic of if you're walking down through town, never go against the traffic because the spotter's going to see that change.
Mm.
You want to go with the traffic as much as possible. Even if you have to go the wrong way out of town and go all the way around the outskirts to get to where you need to go, that's the safer way to go than trying to beeline it through the opposite flow of traffic, the opposite flow of people, foot traffic specifically. You want to be blended in.
I think along those same lines, even if you're going with the flow of traffic, stay with the flow of traffic. Like if you feel like you're nervous and you're anxious and you want to get out of there fast, you're going to walk faster than probably everybody around you, and that's going to identify you a little bit because you'll stand out as somebody who's moving more quickly through the crowd than the normal person
Mhm.
is. So be aware of that as well as you're moving through the crowd, or if there's no crowd, just make sure that you're staying with the flow. Obviously, if someone's running for you, you're going to need to run to get away from it. But that's another thing I think and maybe the police officers will get to this, but being aware of the area that you live in, like know where the alleys are, know where the stores
Yep.
are, know where the entrances are, know where the door, like when you walk into a store, and this is, one of those typical gray man operator kind of things. Like, I don't know if you've ever watched the movie Taken or any of those types of shows, but the guy was like, so how many exits are in this? There's 3 exits over there, over there. There's 2 windows over there, over there. You know what I mean? Like, be that guy a little bit
Yeah.
when you're trying to, because if you're in a situation where maybe you're in a store and an active shooter comes in and you need to escape, well, you're not going to escape unless you know where the escape routes are. And that's part
Mhm.
of being aware and being, when I go to the grocery store, I know where some of the back doors are to the grocery store because I've, you know, I've paid attention to that.
And it all goes back to familiarization with your terrain, familiarization with your territory.
Hmm.
That was the other thing you talked about. It's like, don't go places you don't know. That's how you get caught. You go somewhere you don't know. Go places you know. Go places like the number one thing, like if you have to abandon your car and hike through the woods,
Hmm.
make sure it's somewhere you've hiked through before because the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to get lost if you don't know
Yeah.
that area. And actually, Angry American did a podcast on this recently as well, and I loved it because his guests talked about they actually practiced this, and this is something I've failed to practice enough since we've moved. There's so much intricacies of knowing how to move through the woods and being undetectable or less detectable. Um, he talked about using game trails, which I've always believed in using game trails, finding and identifying game trails, using those as your walkways, your pathways, not walking in open areas, moving as much as you can in the evening, in the dark, where you're not seen. Um, Utah Mike brings up a point when you're out and about, there's so much use of facial recognition everywhere, and it's going to get worse and worse. Um, it's going to be harder to be undetected in cities. That's the way the world is trying to move. They want to be able to track us all the time, every time. Go to China. If you can't be detected, they won't let you in certain stores.
Yeah.
I actually saw a video just the other day that's already here in the United States. There are stores that are starting to implement that. And it's like, they're going to lose my shopping. I'm not going there. But the key is making sure that you know your surroundings. And Shane always pushes me on this whenever we go somewhere. Hey, buddy, welcome to the
Hey.
show.
Thanks.
We
Sorry to
know
just
where
jump in.
the exits are. We know where the number one point of threats can come from, and number two point of exits are. And we try to sit to where we can see those things and have a better view. So you have to, no matter what, when it comes to escape and evade, when it comes to navigation, when it comes to just daily living, you have to be aware of your surroundings.
We went to a restaurant a couple months ago as a business meeting. We met up and we all sat in. We made sure we sat in a booth that we knew where we could see the exits, we could see the entrance. We knew kind of where the exit. If somebody came in that door, we could leave out that door. It was kind of fun that we all just kind of did it just naturally. And then we're like, hey, wait a minute, did we just do this? And then we're like, yeah, we pretty much did. And then, of course, Shane and I know that you have started to, Scott, but carrying on a regular basis is another way to keep ourselves safe from threats as well. But, honestly, using weaponry should be a last resort. Escape and evade should be first, because you don't want to have to engage anybody in that. There's just not only is it just can be dangerous and messy, but the legal ramifications afterwards is just messy. So just stay, especially when society is the way it is, still going and still running, it's just escape and evade. But once society kind of goes the way of all the earth and that crap hits the fan, we're going to need to really be able to, I feel like you're going to really need to want to know how to read human interactions and maybe body language and some of those things. Because if you're traveling home after an EMP or something hits and left you stranded and you're walking home, you come upon a group of people that are, you want to hope that they're kind and they're nice and they're going to be in the same situation as you. But when stuff starts happening, some of these people might get violent and might get, super aggressive, and they're like, well, look, hey, you got a bag. Like, we didn't plan for any of that. We want to take your stuff and, beat you up and take your stuff. So escape and evade it's a different set of skills based on the circumstances that you're in.
Well, the funny thing is wherever you are, someone can easily be watching. And it's not necessarily someone. Like, you put yourself in a nature situation, there are predators out there that you look tasty. So you need to understand, like, especially in Utah, what's the predator you have to worry about the most here?
Cougars.
And I'm not talking like the 40-year-old ladies that are single. That's also a problem here.
Yeah.
We have cougars. I've had personal run-ins in my property.
Let's call them mountain lions.
We'll call them mountain lions. Thank you. Like, we'll get a little more accurate here. But then we also have all the BYU students. You got to worry about them because they're not all there. So you've got to look at. sorry to all my family and their alma mater, but humans can be stupid. Animals are a lot smarter than us when we're on their terrain. Their instincts are honed. They're primed. They've been practicing. We have not. So if you're not practicing these things, you're putting yourself in a disadvantage. So you need to go practice these things. It's summertime. Great time to go hiking. Great time to learn trails around your house. Great time to go look for all the different rabbit trails, all the game trails. Look for additional resources. Look for places where you can hide another bag, right? Create waterproof kits that you can bury, a little cache, if you will. But those are the types of things that you need to start thinking about if you want to be really good at escape and evade. Mm-hmm. If you really want to be good at getting away from places and getting to a rally point, right? Your bug out location to a safe place when you have to move covertly.
Yeah, I guess to put in a comment or two here, not knowing exactly where you guys have been going with the conversation, but in kind of my spending time thinking and listening to commentary on this, is what has stood out to me the most is really this is is a mental discipline, more than having the right gear. I mean, that's always important, especially escape and evade, depending on what situation you're in and so forth. And it sounds like you're not really talking about like Army, SEER, escape and evade type things, just kind of normal, everyday, urban,
Civilian. Urban.
civilian. Okay. Right. And I think that requires or could benefit from some tools, some preparation, kind of a kit of some sort that you could keep on yourself that are very minimalistic and so forth. But it really, to me, I think is more of a mindset, having the right mindset, having the right, of course, that comes with training and practice and being mentally prepared. But it is, I think, more of a mental discipline. I don't know if you guys have talked about that at all.
Not yet. No,
Not
that
yet.
was kind of where I was wanting to lead from here, was kind of go that direction and understanding maps and directions and time. Because a lot of people just don't, without, like, I lose my watch today. Oh no, how do I find time? What time is it? What?
Don't have a compass. How do you find north? Right. And if your mind isn't clear, you're not going to remember. You may not remember how or the easy ways.
If you're in an emergency state, a lot of your common sense kind of goes away. And so if you don't practice these things, if you don't revive that knowledge that you've once experienced, you're going to be at a disadvantage. That's why I love this book.
The Boy Scout
this is like the bare bones basic book I think everybody should have. This is the Boy Scouts of America. We've got it listed on Prepper Talk Radio. You can link to it. Get the spiral bound version because it has everything you need. Like, okay,
hopefully you can find an older version of it. That
if you can find the super old version, that's even better. But this version here, this is the 20. I think is the 2018 version. They have a newer one, and I don't like it. The newer one's garbage. This is the 2016 version, but it's the spiral bound one from 2016. It's probably more in depth. The older the versions, the better the skills, though. Like the older ones go really deep into bushcraft, really deep into high level first aid and in navigation. This gives you all the basics you need to know.
Here's another option that I've been thinking about is the old Army, Navy, Air Force manuals, right? About and I don't know, we're not really necessarily talking about that aspect of escape and evade, but there you go, right there. Yeah, a lot of great manuals, and they are old school, and that's what I think I like about them is that they're very old school, very basic, and instead of trying to get all fancy and complicated, which tends to happen with preppers, because we got to have something to talk about. We got to have something to make us stand out, and
we
this
go
is my
for
calling
the gear.
card. Right, we go for the gear. Whereas these manuals don't seem to focus on the gear. The gear back then was pretty crappy.
Minimal.
It was very minimal, pretty crappy. I mean, think about your old Boy Scout gear. It's pretty crappy. So yeah,
these show like edibles, different plants you can find and eat, how to track and trap things, like how to travel. This is phenomenal because it gets into when it's safe to travel, how to travel, what tools you need to be better at getting through different types of terrain, and whether you're being followed or not. Hey, guess what? It's in here. Like the more you can study these things, the better you're going to be in any scenario.
I think something that'd be good to do is study tracking, and then think about if somebody was tracking you, what would you do to avoid being tracked? And that's part of escape as well. I Googled, and forgive me for using Google, but I Googled escape and evade techniques in preparation for the show. And one of the fun things that I found in one of the articles was have an extra pair of socks that you can put over your shoes, so that they don't track the tracks of your shoes, so that your footprint is different and changed. And I thought that's a great idea. Those are some of the cool little things that you find that are out there that people are sharing. But one of the main things in themes in this article, of these articles that I found, was learn tracking yourself, and then you'll learn how to defend against what trackers would do to find you. And there's a great movie. It's fun. It's exciting, full of action, and it's really got a lot of this escape and evade stuff in it. It's called Gray Man. It's on Netflix, I think. It's with I can't remember I think is it Ryan Gosling or is it or Gyllenhaal? I think it's Gyllenhaal.
Jake Yeah.
Jake Gyllenhaal, I think
Gyllenhaal?
he's the actor. in it. Anyways,
Gyllenhaal. Yeah, Gyllenhaal.
it's called Gray Man, and it goes through. He has to escape and evade several situations, and I mean, I know it's Hollywood, and I know it's in the script, and it's super easy for him to do. But there's some good ideas that you can have by
But
watching.
they
shows like
actually
that.
use experts to help them understand how to do this so they can present it from a smarter view. Is it
Yeah.
always 100% right? Not always, but it's better. Like Utah Mike, just I relate to this so much.
Unfortunately.
After getting lost, very lost 2 times, I will never get lost again. I'll always find north and pick landmarks first thing in every new area. When I was 14, this embarrassing Scott moment. When I was 14, I went on a scout camp out. We went up high in the mountains of Wyoming. I grew up in Colorado, and it was this explorer scout. We were going to do a 30-mile hike, and there's this lake we were going to look for, and our leaders were like, "Hey guys, follow these markers, but don't get ahead of us." Guess what we did?
Got ahead of him.
We got ahead of them because we're stupid 14-year-olds. And I was the oldest in the group was 16. There was 4 of us that got lost. And it was it was Don, Eddie, Murray, and myself. Now Murray grew up to be an FBI agent. Eddie grew up to be a professional drummer for marching bands. And Don, I think he's in sales. I've kind of done everything. My biggest passion has become prepping. My favorite thing was survival, wilderness survival. That's how I got into scouts. And I was the youngest of the 4 of us. And so we kind of made Don the leader, and he's like, "Well, here's the way we should go." And he's like, "These are the trail markers," and it was stacked rocks. Well, guess what's at the top of this entire rock field of the mountain? A giant rock pile. How many stacked rocks are everywhere? So we took a complete wrong turn, followed by another wrong turn, followed by another wrong turn, got down the other side of the mountain, and got completely so stupid lost that we're like, okay, well, let's find another trail and find our way back. Instead of backtracking, like first common sense to do, right? Marking your way so you can find your way back. We didn't do any of that. We didn't do any of the basics that we were taught in scouting. We just started wandering like morons. And we got so lost that our scoutmaster was on the hunt, not just to find us, but to end us. He was so pissed.
Oh dang!
And this is the best scoutmaster I've ever had. Gary Cook is just a phenomenal man, but he was livid. And there was a storm on top of the mountain. All the other boys were getting dumped on. They're up there waiting for us to be found. And I feel bad because this kid Doug got super sick, and I ended up having to carry his pack out as punishment. But like, we got so lost we couldn't find our way. And honestly, it wasn't until prayer that we found our way. And I was the one that was like, "Guys, we've got to pray." And I'm the kid that like went through all the land navigation stuff. My dad was pushing this on me all the time, topographical maps, everything, using a compass. And I'm like, "Guys, we are lost. I don't have any maps. I don't have any idea of where we are." I'm like, the only one that does is God at this point. And we prayed, and God's like, the minute I stood up, God's like, "Go that way." I'm like, "Guys, we need to go that way." And they're like, "That's not the right way." And I'm like, "We need to go that way." We started walking. 5 minutes into the walk on that weird little, looked like an old road, 2-lane or 2-tire track road. We run into 2 fishermen in the middle of the mountains, and they're wearing their big old hip waders. And I'm like, "Hey, are you guys Boy Scouts?" And we're like, "Yeah." Like, "Oh man, you guys are in trouble. We just saw your scoutmaster running around back that way, probably 15 minutes back. So you better hurry." And so we start running with our backpacks on to try to go down this path. And he's like, "Just follow this path. You'll get to a river. Take a right at the river. You'll get to the lake." We get to the lake and we can't find him, and it starts raining in. So we set up camp. And we're like, "Okay, what do we do?" We got out of the rain. We wanted to stay dry. And the funniest thing, as soon as it stopped raining, like 5 minutes after the rain was over, one of the other scouts comes wandering up over the hill behind us to start fishing. And we all saw him, and we're like, "Dude!" And he's like, "Oh, I found you." We're like, "Where's camp?" And he's like, "I don't know." He was now lost.
Oh
But
dang!
because we could ascertain where he'd kind of come from, and we were able to track out his steps because it had rained, we found camp. We found camp because we were able to track his steps backwards. He couldn't figure out how to follow his own steps backwards. But thankfully, we could.
That's
We
so
found
funny.
camp. Our scoutmaster was pissed. We were all safe. Everybody was fine at the end of the day. We were in loads of trouble. We were all on KP duty the rest of the week, but we got out of there. Now, since then, I've worked really hard to be really good at navigating and keeping myself on the right trails and keeping myself with a group. And I think it's a lost art to understand navigation.
Mm-hmm. And you know, kind of like I mentioned before, a big part of that is that mental discipline of staying calm. And if you, of course, you had the knowledge, you would more than likely have known what to do. Is, you know, we're lost. We're going to stay put. That's the first thing to do. Is just, you know, don't let it get worse. Stay put, right? But to have that clear thinking to say, okay, here's the logical next thing to do, right? And it comes with training and practice, and that mental discipline comes with time, with experience.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's like, if you don't try it, if you don't practice it, it's so unfamiliar. It's so hard to try to just jump in it in a crisis situation. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna pull up some topographical maps. I love understanding topographical maps. The reason is you can do a ton by understanding how topographical maps work. Now, you guys have played with topographical maps, I'm sure. Do you understand what all these lines are for? I'm going to zoom in a little bit. All these lines are your elevation lines. And typically, and you're going to have one of two scenarios with most maps once you've purchased a map. This is a digital map, so it's going to change a little bit differently. But you're going to have on every map a legend that tells you distance, and it tells you the distance between, or elevation change between these two lines. But it's usually going to be 40 feet or 80 feet, typically. But your legend will tell you otherwise. And this is how the elevation increases. You'll see right here, this is 9,800, so 9,840 feet. This is 9,920, and this is 10,000 feet. You'll see this blue, there's a body of water up here. There's another body of water up here. So this is Grand Teton National Park. I've hiked through there a number of times. There's some pretty sketchy places that you don't want to get caught.
When the lines are far apart like that, that means it's a gradual increase. Yep. And when the lines are really close together, that means it's a really steep incline. And so that will tell you maybe where sheer cliffs might be or other things to watch out for.
Which is where I was going. So this is a gradual line, right? So this is kind of a valley area or a gully, low area. You'll see the lines are getting closer and closer together. Then you come over here and look how close these lines are.
Holy smokes.
That is steep. Mm-hmm. Right? That's not the place you want to hike up. That's not a safe place to try to be climbing up and down, especially in places where this gives us kind of a 3D view, but like this is really steep. If it's getting to dusk, you don't want to try to find your way out. You need to stop and just stay where you are, unless you're really good at understanding navigation.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have on these maps, like at the mall, you are here when you see the kiosk. Bink, you are here. Oh, I can get to whatever store. Big on Dillard's over here. I got to walk past this place and that place, and now I'm at Dillard's, right? No, you've got to figure out where you are. And the easiest way to do that is to find three major focal points or three major peaks and use your compass to point those out. So, for example, I don't know where I am, but I can see three peaks here. This one, and this one, and then this ridge line. Now, just using a ridge line, it's hard to find find where exactly you are. But if you can pick a point that's highest on the ridge line while you're wherever you are looking, you use your compass and point to true north, and then turn your compass to find out what degrees you're looking at to find that line. And then you take your pencil and you draw it on your map. From that line, from that point you just picked, you draw it across your map. Then you find another one. Again, orientate your compass so that the straight edge comes from that point and it'll cross that line. You do it with enough points and you'll find out where you are within about 40 to 80 feet. And that's how you find your way out when you're stuck and you have a topographical map. If you don't have a topographical map, You then have to go to bushwhacking. And that's where animal trails are key. They use the simplest paths to go places. And they always cross water eventually. So,
and then when you hit
practice
water, always go downstream, right?
yep, always go downstream. But one of the problems, though, is a lot of people will think I can just go downstream and I'll be fine. And you get to a waterfall and it's impassable. So you can't just simply say, I'll just follow the water. We followed the water, and that got us further and further lost when I was 14.
Wow.
Because Don and Eddie were like, oh, dude, follow the water. It'll take us right to the lake. When we got done with that camp out, we found out there was 42 lakes in that area.
Oh, dang.
And we were going to one. That's the key. Like, you have to start practicing with these. Same thing with just regular maps. If you can spend time learning regular street maps and put away your GPS and figure out what are the major focal points in my city, in my town, in the next city over, so that you can always identify where you are and where north, south, east, and west are, how to navigate by the stars, how to navigate by landmarks. You can kind of put the maps away and remember how to get places.
Yeah.
And not need them, not rely on those things.
A couple easy ways to remember north is that the sun sets in the west, in the east, and rises in the west. So as long as you remember opposite. Whoops. Okay, never mind. Well, I knew east and west was one of them. Anyways, dang it. So
you started right, and then you
yeah. I was like, wait a minute, it sets in the west and rises in the east. That way you always know where north is, because what I do is I look at the sun. I'm like, okay, it's kind of going this direction. And so I kind of put myself and say, if that's west and that's east, or that's west and that's east, then that must be north. And so that's a good way to kind of use the sun to help you stay where you're supposed to go, is by following it may take you an hour or two to kind of see where the sun's going and where it's been. But, I'd rather spend an hour studying the sun so I know exactly where north is than spend an hour running in circles trying to figure things. You know what I mean? You're going to spend the hour either way.
You only need about 20 minutes to identify north if you want to sit and wait for the sun.
That's cool. Right?
But if you know the area and you, part of the knowing where the sun is and doing that, you also need to understand time and how to track the sun over the sky using your fingers and identifying an hour's length of time and then 45 minutes, etc. But you've got it, like, it's a lot easier than people think, and it just takes a little practice.
Yeah.
Right. And Utah, Mike, in Utah, after living many places, Utah street grid is the nut. Like, when I first moved here, I was like, what the crap? Like, everything's numeric.
It's the easiest thing ever.
What's that?
It's the easiest thing ever.
It is. But there are so many places. This is the part that I hate. There are so many places you hit a new city and they change the grid. And you're like, wait a minute. I thought I was 1600 north. Now I'm 800 south. What just happened? And certain places they don't go through. But it is 1,000 times easier than like where I grew up in Denver, where every street has a name and none of the streets are straight except for the old district. Everything outside of Denver, everything is cattywampus. And it looks like these topographical map lines. That's how every street is. It's wiggly lines all over the place. And you're like, how do I navigate anywhere? But if you get used to it and you understand where things are and you understand your landmarks, like when I traveled for business, every time I went somewhere new, I would spend time orientating myself. So I knew where north was, where I knew where the major landmarks were, and I knew where resources were for me if something happened.
A lot of times, even on my phone, if you're going to use your phone for your map, I just scroll out or zoom out and look at other areas, even use my phone GPS as a map. If you don't have a paper map, I highly recommend you get one. But if you don't have a paper map, at least scroll out and you just got to get an idea of the terrain, get an idea of where things are, north, south, east, west on your phone. And then as you're traveling, you'll know, okay, I'm headed southeast or southwest, northeast, north, whatever. And then you'll kind of keep that in your mind as you're moving through the town or whatever you're doing. Wherever, one of the things that my wife always says, she says, I don't know how you can always find your way out of places and because I try to remember the landmarks. When I go somewhere, I want to track back what I saw and remember, okay, I turned left here. So leaving, I need to turn right. et cetera, et cetera. So you just do the opposite of what you did when you're trying to leave an area that you got into. But that's just something that I do to keep myself oriented wherever I go, whatever I'm doing.
I think Billy Bird put up a good point. Prepare yourself to live like a hunted animal. There was a hunter shared this story. It was really cool. And it was an Aboriginal hunter, and he was talking about the amazement that he had watching a cheetah chase down an antelope. And for the cheetah was hungry and wanted a meal. The antelope wanted to live, and the antelope got away. So it all comes down to how bad you want what you need. And he's like, if you want to get away, you've got to do it because you want to live. And you have to be like, there's beside the factors of being able to navigate and orient yourself, you need to be able to be fit enough to get away.
Mm-hmm.
Because none of this is going to do any good if you can't hike, run, climb, jump. A lot of people who can't do that. There's so many preppers. This makes me so sad. And there's so many preppers who just think, oh, I've got all my stuff. I'm good. Yeah, you're good if you never have to get out of your wheelchair. There's more to it. You like it, and you can't survive alone. There's so many lone wolf mentalities. Oh, I got everything I need. Or then there's the gun group guys that are like, we'll just go in and roll in town and take everything we need because we got our own little militia. And no. Like that doesn't work, because guess who's got a militia too? Every dang prepper.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them are loaded to the gills, and they're not going to let you come through without major losses. So it makes more sense to me to build communities of strength, build communities of self-reliance, and work together to create better solutions. Like my friend over at Tara, who's over at Farmish. She just did a series on TikTok that cracks me up to the nth degree. It's so far she's on part 3. The first part she talks about, she's like, okay, guys, we had an EMP, nothing works. All the electronics are gone, power's off. We don't know how long this is going to last. So we need to go through and figure out what can we do to start rebuilding our community. She's like, don't worry about the next city over. Don't worry about the next neighborhood over. We've got to take care of ourselves. They've got to take care of themselves. What can we do? And she goes through and lists out, here's what we need to start with. All right, we needed to make an assessment. Okay, who knows how to forage? Who knows how to do this? And they start going through those lists. And she's like, and she talks about this group. She's like, okay, and now day 2. All right, guys, we've had some losses. Old lady such and such passed away last night because she didn't have her medical devices don't work anymore. She was 98. We're going to miss her, but we've got to take care of that. Also, the 8 guys that took off, Meal Team 6, they said they were going to go find food. They're going to go raid these other guys, and they were heavily armed. They're still missing. I'll let you know if we find anything, but I doubt they're coming back. Right? And I'm like, Meal Team 6? Are you kidding me?
That's funny.
And so I do edit it because I thought it was hilarious and spoofed off of it. But I'm like, if you have that mindset of, we're just going to go find somebody else's stuff and take it, like you're going to be in for a world of hurt. But if you can start building a reservoir of knowledge of things you can do now and creating systems and methods and ways to do it now so that you can involve other people to help take over the responsibility and share the load, you're going to do a lot better off in any bad situation. And that's where I really want to point out, like, learn these skills so you can be a benefit instead of a hindrance to your community, a benefit to your family instead of a hindrance to your family.
The old kids game, hide and seek, I think is a perfect example of learning how to escape and evade. If you stay in the shadows, don't do obvious things. Try to know your area, know your surroundings, know where you can, if you need to tuck in as somebody passes by you can tuck in there. If you need to, make a different, pick a couple alternate routes. If you don't always travel the same way to work or the same way to the grocery store, pick a couple different routes, or at least know a couple different routes in case you need to make a different choice. Know your city well enough, know your area well enough that you can, if you need to, you can make those alternative routes and contingency plans reality if you need them to be there. But Yeah, this is, I think escape and evade is one of those things that it takes practice, takes time, it takes thought. You have to be situationally aware, and you have to take the time to say, okay, what if this happened, what would I do? And then kind of run through those scenarios and keep yourself in a place where you can stay alert and stay ready minded.
Yeah, quick comment on this here is, what if you lose your preps, right? One of the what's the right word? One of the reasons to practice escape and evade is to, whatever you have on you is all you have, right? Maybe it's sewn into a belt or into your cap here. Like I've got, under here, I've got a little handcuff shim under here, right? And just whatever you have, maybe all you have. You've got a pocket, instead of having your entire bug out bag. So Billy's absolutely correct. There is, you should be prepared, especially mentally, we have all this stuff. I have all this stuff. I'm so prepared. I've been doing this for years, and then I have nothing, right?
Yeah.
I have none of my preps
down. Like there's so many scenarios you could lose it all.
Yeah. What if I lost it? And then, okay, so at that point, how am I mentally? What am I thinking? Am I thinking I got this, or am I thinking crap, I'm screwed because I don't have any of my stuff? Right?
Mm-hmm.
No, that's the wrong place to be. But like you're saying, Scott, it takes practice. It takes mental fortitude, whatever you want to call it. Right? It takes time. Right? You can't expect to just watch our podcast and think about it a little bit. No, it's much more complicated than that, unfortunately.
It's the best investment you can make in yourself. Education in these skills and these techniques. It's funny. I wanted to bring up, before we run out of time, I wanted to bring up a couple movies. One, I'm going to say a phrase and you tell me what movie this is from. It wasn't me. It was The One-Armed Man. What movie?
Fugitive.
Right? And he goes to great lengths to get away. He uses some really good techniques of breaking trail, going through rivers, hiding in places that are easy to lose a tail, and then changing his appearance, right? Another one I wanted to point out is a prison escape. So this goes back a couple episodes. We did our skills you can learn from prisoners from jail. Shawshank Redemption.
Mm-hmm.
You guys remember that movie?
Oh yeah, it's on TV every freaking day.
Is it? Okay. So
like Blazing Saddles used to be on all the time.
Okay, so you don't have to rent it. You can just turn on the TV, it'll be there. But Andy, he takes and he plans. He plans out how he's going to escape.
And tells no one.
Doesn't share details with anybody. But what does he do? He gets a shiny pair of shoes. He gets a suit. He gets a completely different outfit than what they're going to be looking for. They're going to be looking for an inmate in inmate's clothes. And he gets a suit and tie and shiny shoes. And he rolls them up into a bag, an airtight bag, seals it, ties it to a rope, and then he climbs through the poop pipe, the sewer pipe, to get out after he works his way through the hole. Takes a long time, right? But he does what's necessary to then look completely different. And it's not a little planning. It's a lot of planning.
Oh, yeah.
His plan was so in depth. Nobody had a clue where he was. Not even his best friend. Until after his best friend got out of prison and saw the letter and was like, oh, wait. And then he found the little cache that he left for him so he could meet him on the beach. Like, that comes back to completely quiet ops.
Yep.
Keeping all your plans secret, keeping all your motives, your information, all the intel secret, and using methods that people don't normally use anymore. Who writes things down anymore? Oh, it's on my tablet. It's on this device. Besides us. Thank you for that example, Shane. But who writes things down? Who knows how to leave secret notes and go back to the 1980s and 70s and 60s and like go back to the Cold War. Like, do you have drops? Do you have places where you can drop stuff for your group to find?
Yeah.
To know how to communicate without using any technology? Like, you could even go back to the 1940s and start using carrier pigeons. Like, get creative, have some fun with this.
Learn some
Learn the
codes.
skills. I think that's the point I'm trying to get back to, and just emblazon in your brains. Like, learn the skills, and then be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Any other thoughts from you guys?
No, I think Spec Ops or special. Pardon me. What's it called?
OPSEC.
OPSEC. You know, the Operation Security and ComSec, Communication Security. You know, we are clearly, obviously, sharing what we know and sharing some of the stuff we're doing. So it's not necessarily that we're following that advice ourselves, but we're doing it because we want to share that and get more people prepared. And there's a lot of people coming out right now trying to teach, trying to wake people up, trying to get people ready. So be aware of what's going on in the world, and stay vigilant. Just stay aware. Just keep your eyes open and be aware of what's going on around you. Like if you leave the grocery store, you know, how many people are still sitting in the car? Would you be surprised if somebody got out of their car next to you because you didn't see him in there? Like, be aware of what's going on. Like, so many of these human traffickers and some of these other guys that are doing these things are looking for those people that aren't paying attention. They're distracted, and they're the easy target. Don't be an easy target.
Oh, one of the last things I want to bring back up: when doing escape and evade in a group, use your phone as a distraction to make them not look at you as a target. Okay, so here's what he said. So he said, if you're walking in a group and you're trying to evade somebody, you can actually put your phone up and have it like streaming something stupid and make it look like you're looking at it. And they'll think you're not their target anymore because you've changed your appearance and now you've got something as a distraction. You're going to look like just another one of the stupid human drones walking down the street, and they can run past you. And I was like, no way. And he goes, you'd be surprised how often that works. And I'm like, okay, I'll have to just do some research, but get creative. Like, find different things to do. Like, I remember 80s movies where kids would like hide in the windows and pretend they're a mannequin in the store, and people run right by them because they're not thinking about those things. They're not paying attention to those things. Will it work? I don't know. It's a movie. But truth is stranger than fiction. There's so many things you could try. At the end of the day, guys, we overshare because we care. We want to help you be prepared as much as you possibly can be for anything and everything. We appreciate you guys, especially those who jumped in the live tonight. If you have questions after the live and you're watching this later, throw your questions in there because we do respond to those. Jump into our group, Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance. And as always, stay tuned for special offers. We've got some really cool things coming down the pipe. Go to preppertalkradio.com. Get our download of our emergency kit lists on our resource pages. And then if you liked any of the books we showed earlier, those are listed on our webpage as well, with a link so you can go buy them yourself. Guys, thanks for staying with us. Thank you for staying ready-minded and being ready-minded. And we're so glad that Shane was able to join us later in the episode. As always, it's better when there's all three of us. So, guys, thanks for being here this time, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
See you next week.
Take care, guys.